So I want to talk about one of the major flaws in this geoprocessing lab. Some of you may stumble on this on your own, and some of you won't get into the data details that much, but it's something you should know. I don't expect you to correct it for this lab, but it is something that you might want to address for your final project. This is kind of an advanced aspect of this. So I have my census data and my school locations, and I selected one school, which I called school test, and I exported it, and I'm going to remove, okay, come on. I'm going to remove that from my table of contents. From that school test, I created a 1 mile buffer. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the school test from my desktop. And then from the buffer, I created a clip or an intersect. This time I did a clip. So I'm going to remove that and turn on my clip. Okay. So if I choose to use the ID tool, and let's say I'm going to go into this census block, which is complete. The shape, it hasn't been intersected by my buffer. So I'm going to choose my ID tool, and it tells me that it has 2 people, population is 2, and that the track ID or the block ID is 2001. Okay, so I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to click on the same original population 2, there's the block ID. The problem comes when you intersect a block. So let's look at this section. This is census block 1000, it has 10 people in it. That is census block 1000, and it has 10 people in it. So I have a major flaw in my data calculation. Anytime I clip a census block, I cut the area, but the data is not updated. So that can be addressed in a fairly simple way, and there are much more sophisticated ways to do it. But I want to show you one way that you can do it that makes a pretty good assessment or recalculation of these 2 census blocks where the area is significantly different. So one thing you have to do before you begin the process is to make sure that you have calculated an area field. And so in the census data, if I click on this census block, it says that the area is 0.26. Okay, if I click on this census block and look at the area, it says that that is also 0.26. So this did not get updated. It didn't recalculate the area, and that's a good thing because we can use that information to create a relationship between the two sections. Now, this only works if you have an independently calculated area field. If your data is not a shapefile, but it's a feature class in a geodatabase, the area, there is an area field that automatically gets calculated. But because this is a shapefile, that area did not get calculated. All right, so I know that this data is not correct. I know that that area did not get recalculated. So this is my original area. So I'm going to add a new field. And because it's going to have a decimal, I'm going to make it a float field. And I'm going to call it new area. And then using the calculate geometry option, I'm going to calculate this in square miles. Okay, so I calculated the area and all of these are 0 and I'm going, what the heck? But here's the deal. I had one cell selected, so it only calculated the new area for one cell. So I have to unselect this. Now I'm going to try that again. Calculate geometry. I'm going to do new area in miles, square miles. Okay, yes. Yay, now I have calculated area. And now I want to double check. Let's see, is there one that looks like it's maybe, this looks 50-50, right? So the area for this, let's see if I can get that to select. Oh, don't send the error report. Well, the good news is when you do the field calculator and the program crashes, your features or your calculations are still there. So I can see that here there was no difference in area. Makes sense. That's completely within the buffer. So all of those are the same. Let's find one that is maybe, that's quite a bit different. Let's take a look at that one. Oh, it's not quite a bit different at all. That's weird. Oh, yes, it is, because there's the rest of it. If I look at that, yeah, there's the rest of it. So that's pretty good. So I kind of think my data worked. So now what I need to do is to figure out how much change, what is the difference or the ratio between these two fields. So I'm going to add a new field called ratio. And again, I'm going to make that float. And then I'm going to divide the smallest by the largest. And where there's no difference, it should be close to 1, right? So I'm going to go into Field Calculator. I'm going to take my new area, divided it by my area. Okay, so yes, there's no change. So this is good. There's no change. There's a little bit of change here. That's kind of weird, and I don't know if that's a rounding error, but it's not going to make a big difference in my calculations. So I want to find one that looks like it's 0.5, just to double check. 0.5. So this should be half the size of the original. And that works for me. So I've got that polygon is about half the size of the original polygon. So I have my ratios correct. So now I can update my population based on the change in ratio. So what I want to do is think about, do I want whole people or portions of people? So I'm going to take my population 2010, wherever that was, somewhere up here. I'm going to find it the easy way. So I'm going to make a new field called new, and I'm just going to use the letter N, new pop. I think it was 2010. Let's take a look here. I'm going to make it long integer because it could be a really long number. And again, I don't want that selected or I'll only calculate for one. Now I'm going to use the field calculator and I'm going to get rid of that formula and I'm going to find the total pop. There, pop 10, and I'm going to multiply it by my ratio. Okay, and then I'm going to take this over to the original pop 10 field. And see, okay, so it decreased my population in these census areas that are on the edge. Okay, so this gives me a little bit more accurate estimate of population. Now, the major assumption that we're working with, which is not true, but it's the one we have, is that the population is evenly distributed throughout the census block, and that's how we can divide the ratio and divide the population.
So I created a new data frame, and in this data frame I'm symbolizing by the new pop 10. In this data frame I'm symbolizing by the original non-adjusted pop 10, and you can see that we have some major differences, and one of the differences that shows up really strong is this upper polygon here. If I go in to, is that activate? I'm going to activate that one, yeah. If I turn this on and I look at this polygon, this is a huge, oops, there we go. This is a huge census block. So, and it's got a lot of people, relatively, so 136 people. But when I did my clip, it really only added that little piece. So by updating, oh really? Turn that off, zoom to layer. By updating the population by the ratio, I'm going to get a much more accurate assessment of what's going on. Again, it's pretty high level. If you can just kind of get a clip and get your numbers, I'm happy with that. Just wanted you to be able to know what's going on.